body other than the face itself.
There are, in fact, 4 different types of, what we think of as Sasquatch or Bigfoot.
Very wide, pronounced nose. There was also a very ominous odor.
Phase 1 is to identify opportunities. I walked into a small clearing in less than 10-15 feet away from this enormous creature, and it scared the living hell out of me. Phase 2 is conducting investigations both of witnesses and locations. The size of the thing, it was, 4 or 5 feet across the shoulders. Phase 3 is profiling research areas, what's there, how they move, feeding, things like that. About 8 feet tall, I guessed around 800 pounds. It was massive. I had no idea that anything like that existed. Phase 4 is create an intercept plan. I decided to shoot in the air to see if maybe it would scare it off. Phase 5 is the intercept and resolve the issue phase. It didn't do anything, didn't react, and then I heard a noise from my right rear, and from out behind some brush come another one and walked over by the first one. That's when I decided to do what the dog did. I took off running. Welcome to Witness of the Unknown. Hello everyone. This is the third part of a very interesting interview with Rebecca. Rebecca, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Will. How about you on this Super Bowl day?
I'm good. We left off last time where you were getting ready to talk about your move to Puyallup and the things that happened there. And for anybody listening, Puyallup isn't very far north of where you and I both lived during those days. It's roughly about 7 miles. And there was a lot of Bigfoot activity there in the early and mid-'70s. So go ahead and dive right into that.
All right. Okay, so I moved from my other address that I had been, and I lived in Sumner for a couple of years, and then from there, I believe it was early 2000. Well, no, it was around Christmas 2006. I moved to Puyallup, and I had an incident. I mean, the very first week, which is, I first moved in there was woods lining there, and I don't know how. I know that the people out there, there's many out there that are going to know what I'm talking about. But as I was approaching, just to kind of view the place, look and see if that's where I wanted to live, I stood there and I stared at those woods, and I had just a weird that feeling. It's quote unquote that feeling. Do you know? I mean, are you understanding what I'm saying, Will?
Right.
And I sat there and I thought to myself, I just a thought just kind of passed my thought. No, it's not true. It's not. No, And so I looked at the place and I thought, okay, it's right where the school that I want my son to go to, and it's right around the corner, 2 streets down from where my older son, so that my younger son and my older son could see each other all the time. And so I went ahead and I decided to live there. And so I'm barely, I'm in a rush. I'm trying to work full time. I'm trying to get stuff in that house, and it was really frantic. And there's a lot of people out there know what it's like trying to work full time and move. And I was a single parent, so. But it was on a Saturday, and I was trying to sleep in, but it was on I'm wanting to say it was somewhere around 6 o'clock in the morning, or some where where it's like it's just kind of starting to get a little bit daylight, or maybe it was 7 o'clock somewhere. Yeah, well, it was daylight. It was daylight, but it was right, and it. Well, it wasn't before sunrise. It was just after sunrise. What time would that be in the winter? What time would that be? I'm trying to think.
I'm thinking
maybe it was more like 8 o'clock.
Around 7, between 7 and 8, probably.
Okay, so I got woke up to tapping on my window. Now, I'm in the bedroom. This is happening in the living room, and at that particular window was facing a woman who was she was very ill apparently, and I never got the opportunity to meet her, but she was very elderly and she was sick from what I understand, and she passed away soon after this incident happened. And I thought to myself, well, somebody had told me this older lady, and I'm laying there in bed and I'm listening to this tap, 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 and I'm thinking, what? First of all, I'm laying there thinking, what is that? And then I'm listening further, and I'm thinking, that's a tapping on my window. Why is somebody tapping on my window? And I'm just like, I'm so tired. Why is somebody tapping on my window? And I thought, why can't somebody come to my door? And if somebody needs me, I thought, why would somebody be tapping my window and not my door? And I thought, now I'm puzzled. I don't know anybody around here. I don't know my neighbors. I don't know anybody. And so I get up, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I come up to the window, and I pull the drapes back. And I just got the shock of my life. I mean, it was just like somebody zapped you with an electrical shock or something. And I see this, probably I'm going to guesstimate at 9 feet tall, really, honestly, about 9 feet tall. With its back, it was turning away. It was a Sasquatch. It was all black, not a bulky one like the gray one I saw, when I was 14. This one was not as massive, skinnier, but very tall, more slender, I should say, and super long arms. And it was swinging its arms. It was already, because that tapping had gone on for, a few minutes before I actually got up. And it's swinging its arms, and it's turning away and walking off. And I stood there, and I looked the other way, and I thought, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening to me. Why am I seeing this? Why is this happening? I just moved here. I mean, really, that's shocking to me, Will.
Especially after your initial encounter. That was very similar.
And a lot of people would say, she's lying, she made it up. No, this really happened to me. And I'm standing there again, feeling like somebody punched me in the nose, and I'm like, why is this happening to me? I actually reached out later on to people, and they're like, I had people tell me that I was marked. And I'm like, what do you mean marked? Well, you're marked. You for some reason, they're drawn to you. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to hear. That's what.
Yeah, thanks a lot, right?
Yeah, I'm like, why are you telling me this? But I'm sitting here faced with this reality that this is what I saw, and I'm like, I didn't want to go outside. I'm just saying, and this is before I got my dog, and so I had my cat, and I was scared to let my cat out. I mean, it was hard, but by all those years and by that time, I had been doing research, and I've been delving into things, and I've been asking questions and trying to find out what I can, and I'm learning little bits and pieces of information along the way, and like I said, it took me 15 years to turn around and face my fears, and it just did something to me. It's like, okay, it didn't break the window. Obviously it wants me to know I'm there. It's there. It wanted me to know it's there. Otherwise, why would it do that? Is this, what is this? A welcome mat or something? I don't know what I'm getting here, but it just kind of lit a fire under my tail. You know what I mean? Just like I have to find out more. I gotta find out what I'm dealing with. Somebody's got to know more than I know. I'm just having experiences. I'm not some, supercharged researcher that, has been, all over the world and knows exactly what's going on. I don't know anything. All I know is I'm having experiences.
Sure. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So, at that point, of course I got to go to work every day and everything, and I'm doing this again. I'm like, great, you know what I mean? It must be out in the woods. It's got to, because literally you could open my bedroom window, and I could reach my arm out that window and touch some of the branches on the trees. I'm telling you, all there was just this thin little worn-like trail, you know, between the tree line and my bedroom, you know, window. And there was a kind of a broken down, like old, what do I want to say? You know, like chicken wire fence, like a chicken wire fence with some barbed wire, and it was very old and been beaten down. It looked like it was just smashed.
Right.
That was lining that tree line. So, you know, even though I want to say there was a fence there, yeah, there's a fence there that anybody could walk over.
Not much of one, yeah.
You know, yeah, not much of one, just kind of smashed down a little bit, you know, and it was old. You could tell the barbed wire was all rusted and, you know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, time went on, you know, and I don't know how much time. I'm trying to really remember exactly the time of when I moved in and the time this happened. But I'm thinking it was like 2 or 3 months later, my son had, there was a neighbor lady that had seen me move in, and she brought her son down there, and she said, love for, you know, your boys, about my boy's age, and it'd be great, you know. And I said, oh, that'd be great if they could be friends, because, you know, my son, we just moved here, you know, and he needs a friend. And so they became friends, and after school one day, my son's like, oh, I'm going to go to Tyler's house, you know. And I said, okay. I said, did you do your homework? And, you know, all this stuff. So he runs out the door, and it's just starting to get dark, okay? By then it's kind of doing that dusting, and I said, call me when you're on your way back here, you know what I mean, because I'll meet you out in front. And he leaves, and I heard a noise, but I didn't know exactly what I was hearing. And then my son calls me. I get a call from my son like a minute and a half later or 2 minutes later. He had gotten to that kid's house, and he called me on their phone, and he was crying. And I said, what's the matter with you? What happened? Did you fall down? Or he goes, Mom, he goes, something happened. And I go, well, okay, what happened? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I was going out the door, and he goes, I ran out down the steps of the front door, and I crossed the front of the house, and he said, something growled at me, Mom. And I said, well, what do you mean, growled at you? And he goes, something growled at me, Mom. I never heard anything like that in my life. Something growled at me. And I said, from where? Where did you hear the growling? He says, from behind our house, by the back door. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I never said anything to him, you know. And I just said, are you sure that you heard? He goes, Mom, it was a horrible, horrible growl. And he goes, I never heard an animal make a noise like that. And I thought, oh, no. I said, okay. I said, when you get ready to leave there, and I said, call me. And I said, I'll walk down there and I'll get you. And that's exactly what I did. And I walked him down. You know, it was about an hour later, and I got him into the house, and he was very, very shook up. Well, we had somebody had not. There was like an ornamental bush, and it had grown and gnarled up. It had not been properly pruned or taken care of correctly, and it had grown up really thick around my back porch. And half of my back porch was like covered, and it was really dark. It was like it had created like this little cubby-like area where you could, like, somebody could actually hide in there or stand behind there very easily and not be seen. And I ended up cutting that thing down later on. But there, when I moved in, you know those cheap little security stick-on things that people can put on their doors, and you push on, and it ekes out this, you know, siren sound if there's a vibration, you know.
Yeah.
It's one of those cheapo little things, you know. Some of them you can even get from the door. Okay, well, there was one of those on my back door. And that thing kept going off, and I kept thinking, what is going on? How come how this thing keeps going off? And I kept looking out the window at times, and I didn't see anything, and but it was always going off. That back door thing was always going off, and finally I turned it off for a while, and then I decided, no, it's probably not a good idea, you know, I'm going to turn it back on. Okay, so time went off, and you know, almost every single night, that thing, when I woke up in the morning, would go off. And I thought, what is going on? Sometimes in the middle of the night. And it was kind of, the battery needed to be replaced, so it wasn't like that super shrill sound. It was kind of faded, but you could hear it. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Like, it's kind of getting down to the point you need to replace the whole battery. You need to replace the whole thing. But it would definitely go off, and you could hear it. And so I would go outside, you know, and walk around this yard. It was just absolutely, you know, I loved this yard, and it needed some new grass, you know. It would need some new grass grown on it, you know. So I went out and there, spread seed on it, you know, and I'm going to take care of this lawn, and I'm going to make it look nice, and I'm going to, you know, do a lot of work. And I would hear out in the woods when I was out there, like cleaning up leaves or whatever, and I would hear stick breaking out there. And I'm like, well, probably somebody's walking around out there, you know. So maybe the neighbors, I could see way through the forest, maybe, you know, a tip of somebody's house or something off in the distance. And I thought, I wonder if somebody's walking around out there, you know, like, you know. And I always had this in the back of my head, you know. I saw that thing, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to hang around, you know, like on the tree line out here very much. And this is kind of what I live with. And in the meantime, I'm still trying to work full time. And so there would be months. There was a few months where everything kind of went quiet, and I really didn't hear a lot. You'd hear occasional stick breaks and stuff out there, but I wondered if that's what it was. But I never saw anything, and I would stand out on my porch, my front porch, and just stare out in the woods, seeing if I could catch a glimpse of something, just wondering, you know, why did that thing, well, maybe it went, you know, off into the green belt. Maybe it's, you know, not around here anymore. Well, you know, you keep wondering. So after that initial encounter, and I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, is that 2007? 2007. It was fairly quiet, but we came home on Thanksgiving, and there was a wounded, injured coyote in my yard, laying there, acting like, well, yeah, and it kept getting, when it saw me, it's, you know, frantic, and it's trying to get up, and it had an injured leg. I don't know if its leg was broken, but it was not carrying its leg. It was you know, trying to get up on three legs, and it acted like it wanted to get out of there, but it kept going back and forth looking in the woods, you know, and that coyote did not want to go off in those woods, but it finally got scared enough, it did take off. But it kept going the tree line back and forth, looking at the woods like it was looking at something. I thought that was kind of odd.
Like it was afraid to go back in there.
And so yes, that's the way it looked. And I thought, what is wrong with that coyote? And I said, Andre, come here. I said, look at this coyote. You know, and we would just stood there for the longest time watching it. And, of course, my son's a kid and everything. He's going, I don't know. Mom, get in here. You know what I mean? Don't go, you know, don't go out in there, you know. And I'm like, I'm not going down there to it. I'm just telling you, look at what's going on here, you know. And I let him see this. So we both witnessed that. Well, so the shower in the bathroom, the shower had a window that was higher up. Okay, this wasn't a full, you know, bathroom window where it was down. It was a higher up window, a strip, you know, kind of like a short, long, a narrow, long window, right?
Kind of an
and yeah. I mean, you could open it. You can open it. There was a screen there, and you could actually open it, you know. But it was big enough where, let's just put it this way: it's big enough where something tall could look down in there. So I switched jobs, and I begin to work for my brother, which is 3 miles away, and it changed my schedule though, and I had to start getting up at 4 a.m. And I started to notice one morning, as I was showering, I start to feel this vibration, and I'm hearing, not crashing, but just kind of, you could hear heavy footfall is what I'm trying to get to. And I'm sitting there, and I'm taking a shower, and I just stopped. And I'm just sitting there real quiet, like, what was that? And then I hear it again. And it sounded like it's coming toward the bathroom, the shower right on the side of the wall where I am. And I'm starting to get the creeps, okay? I'm starting to get the heebie-jeebies. And I'm like cowering down, if you can even imagine that. I'm cowering down, and I'm like, you get that weird feeling when you feel like something's watching you. And I'm thinking to myself, is that thing standing out there looking in the shower? Well, I can guarantee you that it was, and it continued on every morning that I got up, every weekday, because I had weekends off, and that kept happening. And that once I'd become aware of it, I was listening for it then, and I could hear it coming up, and I thought, oh my Lord. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? I mean, it really kind of, unnerved me because it's on the other side, and I know it's there, and I can actually at times hear it breathing. I knew it was right there. That's unnerving. I mean, for anybody. I mean, think about that. So then I got the dog, and he would run around. He was always running around that yard sniffing. And at one point in time, my son was out there with my older son, and there was some other people, friends and stuff, hanging out in the yard. And my dog just stops playing with my son and charged the woods. His hackles were up on the back of his neck, and he was charging the woods. I mean, just literally running at the woods and just digging, stiffening his legs, and charging, barking at something. And that was the weirdest thing, and I'm thinking in my mind. And then these kids, friends of my sons, this happened every year, every summer that they were there, that I lived there. And they're like, something's walking. These kids would tell me. I would never say anything to them. And they were coming to me, telling me, there's something in the woods. There's something in the woods. And I'm like, oh, really? What'd you hear? There's something I don't know, something big walking around in those woods. I said, well, how do you know that? And it's because we're hearing big branches breaking and stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, just stay away from the tree line, because, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go start trying to tell them Bigfoot stories, because,
right.
The parents are probably going to be breathing down my neck and, everything else.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I know what's going on out there. And so, so anyway, I'm reading my notes because I wrote down so much stuff. I'm sitting here.
No problem.
Go ahead.
No problem.
I'm sitting here. There's so much. I mean, there's so much at that house. And so then there was the incident. There was another incident, and this was like the next year. This was like in 2008, later on in 2008. And I was leaving for work. I was backing out, and this was in the spring. And I'd seen that same black one twice before, and it was in a different section of woods. There was woods behind my house, and then there was a section of woods just off, as I was driving out, backing out my driveway. There was another, section of woods that led off into the distance there too. And I saw that one way off in the distance, and it was swinging back and forth, just swaying back and forth, hanging on to these trees. And I would just sit there and look at it. And that's really hard for me, Will. When if you think about that, I got to get to work. I'm going to be late to work, and I'm backing out, and I'm looking at this.
Right.
Now, half of me wanted to take off, and half of me wanted to stay and say, wow, this thing is actually watching me, and I'm seeing him. Now, he was kind of covered in brush or branches that were hanging down from trees, but I'm anybody that knows what I'm talking about, you can make out the form of a Bigfoot standing there, and I'm watching him. He's watching me. And so anyway, that happened twice. And then one morning, I was backing out, and I backed around, and I saw something on this tree. There was this old, gnarly oak tree that had lined the woods. It was halfway down, I would say my backyard. My backyard, Will, was so big that it was just short of a...
Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. We got cut off, but I guess we're back in business.
I know. I don't know. I have no idea what to say about that. I'm just sitting here. I didn't do it.
No, it was something on my end. Something went wrong with Skype, I guess. But I guess, let's see, I can't remember where you were heading there.
I was going to talk about, well, I was talking about my yard, how large it was, and how it took me like 3 hours to mow that lawn. I mean, it was just huge. It was a lot to mow. So, am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. So there was an old oak tree, just a gnarled up, old growth oak tree. And it was about, I would say, 40 feet, 45 feet down from my front porch, and about 25 feet in the tree line back there. And one day I was backing out to go to work in the morning, and I saw something strange. I mean, the tree just looked weird. Now, mind you, I had switched jobs, and I was a transport person. I was a medical transport person, and I would pick people up and take them to the appointments, and bring them back, and so I had my binoculars with me because a lot of times we would get layovers, and or somebody would cancel an appointment, and I had times that I had to myself, and that I could just go and drive somewhere and look around. So I always had those binoculars in my car, so that if I went anywhere, I could go searching around.
Sure.
And so I back out of my driveway, and I'm looking at this oak tree. I just glance at it, and I do a double take, and I'm like, what's wrong with that oak tree? And then I sit there, and I'm like, what the heck? It looks like something's on that oak tree, like something's draped on the oak tree. And I thought, who in the heck has been out here? And I thought, this is the strangest thing, and I'm sitting there staring at it for a minute, and I picked up my binoculars that were in the seat next to me, and I looked through those binoculars, and I'm seeing a face. And I'm looking at it with my bare eyes. I'm looking through these binoculars and telling myself, am I really looking at a face? That looks like a face. And I'm like, I don't believe this. I don't believe this. What the heck? And I'm like, is this really true? So I'm staring at it. I'm seeing a body, and I'm seeing arms. And I did something, Will, that people would think that I'm crazy. But I thought to myself, I have to see this for myself. I'm getting out of the car. I'm walking across the yard, and I'm going to go and I'm going to look at this, because this is the first time I will ever have this chance, probably, to have this experience, and I want to see it up close. So I did. I swung that car door open. I left the car door open, and I started walking. Slowly, I might add, because I'm really cautious and I'm shaking, but I went across the lawn, and I stood there just maybe 25 feet from it, and I saw the most astounding thing, Will. And, this is something that brought some conclusions to me. But this thing was real. It was a different one. It wasn't the black one. Mm-hmm. This one had like mousy, gray, reddish cinnamon kind of hair. Okay. I'm thinking it could have been an older one.
Right.
And it had patches of skin, hair, like where there weren't any hair, like it looked like there was patches of hair gone. And the hair underneath its arms was the longest hair on its whole body, was hanging off underneath its arms. But its hair was longer, kind of wispy, mm-hmm. and more see-through. It didn't necessarily, it just kind of reminded me of an much older individual. But I don't know for sure. But I'm looking at this thing, and it's backed up against the tree. Its arms are stretched out underneath each branch that went out each direction. Okay, so you got the right arm up underneath one branch. You've got the left arm underneath another branch, and it's up underneath a gnarled part of this oak tree with its neck like it's trying to get up underneath it, and it's looking straight up in the air. And it would not quit looking. It was like frozen. Mm-hmm. It was being still, not moving at all. And it was the weirdest sensation that came over me. This one kind of looked like, and I know this sounds strange, Will, but it kind of looked like an orangutan. Right. Had a kind of an orangutan kind of look. This one looked nothing like the other one, nothing like the first one I saw, and I've never seen anything like that since, ever. This is the only time. But it was like frozen. And I thought, oh my God, I'm getting out of here. You know, I've seen what I'm going to see. This thing could kill me. I'm way too close. And I started literally backing out. I didn't turn around and run. I took one step backwards and another step backwards, and I just kind of backed out of it into the middle of my yard. And I turned around and I got in my car, and I just sit there and looked at it with my door still open. And I thought, I can't believe it. It was still not moving. And, of course, when I came home from work, that was the only thing on my mind all day was I couldn't believe that I saw that. And when I come home, of course, it was gone. And I thought about this, and I pondered this for a long time. And I thought, oh, my gosh, I wonder if this is how a lot of them can do a type of camouflage. I don't know if that's really the word I want to use, but think about it. Mm-hmm. If there's one is dark, it's dark brown, and it's leaning up against a tree and doing that, is it possible that people go past them and this is one way they hide?
I think people go by them all the time and just don't pay attention.
I
They
think
don't
so
see them.
too.
Yeah.
I think so too. But this was like, it was allowing me to see it, and it didn't attack me. You know, but it never happened again. And I mean, of course, you know, and you know, now I got a situation out here, and I'm like, okay, I'm just done. I'm in the Sasquatch world. I'm in the Bigfoot world. They are like coming out of the woodwork. I'm like in it. That's it. I might as well just find out and learn what I can, you know. And so I was really becoming. By that time, I was obsessed. I mean, I was completely encompassed, saturated. My mind was racing. I knew that I had to acknowledge that that they could be everywhere, and that they were all over Pierce County. Right. And I had to tell myself, after listening to other people's stories and things online, and I thought, people are having sightings more and more and more. They are having babies. They have their own families. They're growing up, and they're, you know,
it's interesting the time period.
Virtually everywhere.
It's interesting the time period you mentioned. I was living in Sumner at that time, and my brother-in-law lives up on South Hill, not far from where, you know, the events, the Pale Screamer events were taking place. And we went to Northern California for a week to one of my favorite Sasquatch hunting areas, and we didn't really get anything, so we went back home, and he told me while we were in Northern California that he was out riding his bike out along the Carbon River, which is down, you know.
Oh, Carbon River.
And,
yeah.
And isn't that far from where we lived, and yourself or him? And he found what he thought were some unusual big footprints. He had me describe Bigfoot tracks to him, so I was describing him one evening. He says, I think I found some of those, and sure enough, we went back and I counted over 100 tracks that were, you know, in this one area next to, or near the river down there. And it's just interesting. I mean, I knew they were in the area, but it was, you know, not that far from where you were having these sightings.
Wow, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's gone around there, and I have my own story about the Carbon River. Well, I have my own story that I can, you know, share that also. That was pretty fascinating what happened down there. One day I was with another researcher and who had come up from a different state, and we were walking along there. But let me go back and finish my story with this, and then I can move on. I'm trying to not just take up all my time on this, but there was a lot that happened out there. And at the same time, all during this time, I was going other places and doing other things in different areas, you know, trying to do research also. So, and then there was that park out there at the same time. I began to, later on, that was in 2011, I started I found a lot of interaction, and there was a lot of things that happened out in that park in Puyallup that I'll tell you about, that I can share with also. But anyway, where was I now? There's so much that happened out there at that house.
You were talking about the individual you saw up against the tree.
Right. And so, I came home and then after that, things began to happen, like activity began to, more stuff started happening. Like I went and bought some ornaments, and one of the garden ornaments, and I planted flowers and, blah, blah, all that stuff. And I put this one stake. It's a stake with a wind chime and a one of those gazing globes. Mm-hmm. I had put down into, amongst the flowers and everything. And I put these, you can go to the store and they're like, you can buy them at the dollar store, and there's those different colored they're like little, they call them river rocks, but they're different colored. Sure. And you can buy them in bags. And I spread them all out in there, and I made it really pretty, and I liked the way it looked. Well, I had some other garden ornaments that I put out there, and I came home one day, and the globe with the chimes and all that was gone. Well, the first thing I'm thinking of is, what the heck? All my stuff is gone? And I'm like standing there, and I'm thinking, why would anybody steal my garden ornaments? You know what I mean? And I kept thinking, I wonder if some kids or something came down here and thought that was funny. But I was kind of isolated down where I was, and I just, for some reason, I didn't think that was what happened. And I hadn't even started up I had all my bags. I'd gotten out of the car, and I hadn't even gone up to the front door yet. I'm just standing there in amazement, and I'm thinking, I can't believe this. I turn around to go up my steps, and here's a big rock on one of my steps leading up to my front door. And I, the old deal where, people pretty much know that a lot of times they'll steal stuff, they're thieves, and they'll steal stuff from you, and they'll give you something back. Mm-hmm. Well, there was this rock. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I mean, this really happened. So I start talking out in the woods, and I'm like, yeah, I know that was you guys. I know that was you guys. You stole my ornaments. You know what I mean? And then you give me a rock. You give me a rock. Is that what I get? You give me a rock. Yeah. And I open up my door. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, stop stealing my stuff. You know what I mean? Bring it back or do something. I mean, can't you? Whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to talk to them. They know I'm here. I know they're here. Whatever. So I go in the house, and I hadn't been in the house more than, I would say, 15 seconds. Okay, I'm going to say 15 seconds roughly. And all of a sudden, something comes and hits the house, just crashed into it. And I mean, it's so loud that it's literally sending out a vibration all the way through my place. And I'm standing there stunned. And I run out to the porch, and I'm like, what the heck? And I'm looking around. I don't see anything. So I go down the porch, and I'm like, something just hit the house. I mean, like, huge, hit the house. So I'm running around, and I found this heavy, dark, damp, soaked, water-soaked, looked like an old chunk of a tree stump or something with roots on it, mm-hmm. and it hit the house. And I thought, you guys had to been. I mean, I had something thrown at the house and hit it after I said that. You guys can draw your own conclusions,
I guess they didn't like to talk to that way.
Something, and I'm like, okay, whatever, you guys stopped. And I'm like, I can't believe that. You guys are going to mess up the side of the house, And I mean, you steal my garden ornaments, you leave a rock. And I said, then I tell you, I protest about it, and you hit the side of the house with a stump, okay, wow. But I never got any aggressive, nothing ever really aggressive happened after that. Nothing like that happened again. But then the pranks start. You know what I mean? There's these little pranking things that would happen down there. Like, I noticed that when my younger son, went to spend the night or hang out with his older brother 2 streets down, something kept pulling off. You know how houses have these panels. They have panels that you can pull out, so you can crawl underneath the house.
Sure.
So you can fix pipes or whatever. You know, you got these, yeah. And this is a mobile home. And so it had this panel that something kept started yanking it off. And I thought somebody was trying to break in the house. And I would call my son, and I said, Joshua, I said, can you guys get over here? Somebody's trying to break in the house. Something's going on. My son had come ripping down the street over there, you know, and they'd show up with, you know, knives and, you know, samurai swords from his collection and all that stuff. And there, you know, and there was never anything there. And this happened, I can't even tell you how many times that happened at that house. Then my daughter moves in. I told her she could come and live with me for a while. So she moved in with her 2 chihuahuas. And then there was a night where, you know, she was out there taking her dogs, you know, to go to the bathroom, and she comes in there crying and screaming. I said, what's the matter with you? She's got both dogs under each arm. Something's out there. And I said, what do you mean something's out there? Something's out there. Something growled. Something's out there. And the dogs were barking and growling. And these little chihuahuas, she's, you know, never, they just, I don't know. They just never barked, which is odd because most chihuahuas do, but these didn't. So we called the police. And an SUV, a police SUV came out, and there were 2 policemen, and they had their, you know, 1,000-candle flashlights. We told them the story, and they went out there, and they started going up and down, you know, checking, and they came back to the front house, and they said, well, ma'am, there is so much, this is overgrown and so thick out here that a man couldn't even, right now as it sits with all the brush and the, you know, vegetation, could not even get in here. It's just too thick. We can't get in there, but we'll take your report. If you hear anything else, you know, don't hesitate to call us back, you know. And so, you know, by then we're like, doggone it, you know, here we go again, you know. So we had, there was a lot of incidences that happened. And then later on, I guess it was maybe, I'm going to say 8 months later, I'm laying in bed, and I suddenly wake up at 3 a.m. Well, I don't know why I just woke up, but I woke up with a start, like literally my eyes are wide open, and I'm laying there like, why, and did I just wake up? I raised up, and I sat on the side of the bed. Now, the full moon, when there was a full moon, that full moon in the middle of the night would be right coming into my bedroom, right into my bedroom. And this also was where that was positioned, just where the woods was in the back. I mean, like, you know, because the woods were behind my house, and my bedroom faced those woods, and the moon is coming through the woods. And I look up, and there was one standing between the moonlight, okay, standing positioned where I'm looking, the moon is creating such a reflection, and I'm seeing this thing standing there in full body in the reflection of the moon. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I have 2 choices. I can run to my window, and I can throw the window open, and I'm like, stop coming here, yell at it, you know. And then I thought to myself, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to even react. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to lay back in my bed, and I'm just going to watch this thing. And it was just slightly swaying back and forth, just slightly swaying, but it was standing still. And it went on for a while. I just laid there, and I watched it. And I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I know, I'm waking up, and the sun is shining. It's daylight. And of course it's gone. But it's making its presence known, you know, and it was that, well, yeah, it's making its presence known. You know, I mean, you know, obviously, why is it standing in front of my bedroom window? I mean, did it know I was watching it? I mean, I had shears. I had those blinds, you know, those smaller blinds.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see through them, and they were partially open. And then I had these shears, You know, there were shears all out through my house, which at that point in time I'm thinking may not be a great idea, except for the drapes that were in the living room, you know, and those were thicker. So, you know, but in any event, you know, I was just astounded. I'm like, why is this happening to me? I mean, why is this happening to me? Is it I just happenstantially happen to live on property where they are, and did the people before me know this, and that's why they moved out, or what? You know, you got.
It sounds like.
I mean, you just kind of sit here and go through things in your life, and you start wondering, why is this happening to me? You know, there had to be more to it than just me. You know, and I'm thinking maybe that's why the people moved out. Now, the lady who owned the property said it was because she didn't pay her rent. Well, I don't know. You know, maybe that was true. But in any event, it can't just be me. This can't just all be just about me, I'm telling myself. But after that incident, you know, things started happening, you know, and then the next year there was the Christmas tree incident where I put the Christmas tree, and there was a two living room windows, one on the opposite side, and that one faced, you know, my front porch, and a deck was near the deck, and there was a railing to that deck. You know what I mean? You open my front door, you walk out onto a deck, and it's covered, and there's a railing around it. You know, it's just pretty nice. I really love that too. And I put the Christmas tree in that window, and it was all twinkle lights and everything. I'm sitting there one quiet night, and my son's asleep, and I just didn't feel like going to sleep. And I'm just sitting there looking at the Christmas tree, and everything was just quiet, and I was really enjoying and I'm looking at the Christmas tree. So what do I see? All of a sudden, I see an arm with hair hanging underneath it reach over the railing. So it had been standing right there at that railing, reaches over its arm real quick, like it's trying to touch the window where the twinkle lights on the Christmas tree was, and then it pulled back. And I'm like, what? I mean, you know, you're just sitting there thinking to yourself, I know it was that one that I saw. It's that one that I saw that I walked up to with the hair, the one I said was kind of a cinnamon gray color, the one I just described to you, the one that was hanging up trying to be part of the tree, right. The one that was trying to be part of the tree. It had to have been that one, you know, because it looked about the same length of hair and everything, but I had shears there, remember? I told you there were shears. You could see right through to the window. Mm-hmm. And I saw that arm reach forward, right where touch the window, and then pull back. And I'm like, I can't believe this.
Good grief.
By then I'm kind of chuckling to myself. Okay, now I'm sitting there going, wow. But there were other times, you know, like one time it was right after Christmas, and I had put a big box out there. It was a Christmas thing that had been given to me. I was supposed to put it outside, and it was one of those outside things. It was really big. Well, it was folded up and in that box, and it was sitting on that porch that I'm talking about. One time I looked out there, and there was something on the deck. There was something on the deck crouched down in front of that box. Well, guess what? That time I'm not doing nothing. I backed up away from that thing, and I'm thinking to myself, it's on, one of those guys is on my porch, and I just want to make sure my door was locked, you know, and I backed away from it. I thought, I'm not even touching this. I'm going into my bedroom. You know, the dog is barking. I'm like, come on, let's go. You know, brought him in the bedroom, made him lay down, and I'm like, it's gonna leave. You know, I'm not dealing with this one. What am I supposed to do? Open the front door and go, get out of here? You know, it's not a dog. You know, and then the incident. Now I'll tell you the incident. There were other incidences too. I saw eyes, like sets of eyes out there during the following Christmas. I thought it was a neighbor way in the distance, you know, and I got my binoculars. I was looking out there, and I thought, I don't know. You know, to this day, I don't know what that was. I'm not even going to say, you know, that they were Sasquatch babies or whatever, but I kept seeing little sets of eyes looking at each other, eyes moving around, you know, probably about 100 feet from where my door was. And I was looking at them, but it was in the night, and I'm just going to say that there were sets of eyes out there, and they looked pretty big. And I'm just gonna put it out there for anybody just to come to their own conclusions. But that's what I saw. What else did I witness out there? How are we doing on time here, Will? Because I'm spending a lot of time.
We're starting to run a little bit short. Did you still have quite a bit of material to talk about?
Well, yeah, there's a little bit.
Well, why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and do a fourth part, and we'll wrap this one up for this time, and then we'll wrap everything up on the next installment.
Okay, because there was other things that happened in other areas, and there was more that happened on this property, and there was that incident, out there along the Carbon River, also that I had out there.
I was hearing about that one because of the tracks we found.
Yeah. Yes, and me and this other researcher found stuff too. And then there was the park. Lori Simmons went out with me twice. Just dear, I just love her, dear sweet girl. And she went out there with me twice, and we had a couple of incidences happen out there too. So yeah, I have more stuff that I can share.
Okay, well let's stop for now, and we'll pick it up on the next installment.
All right, that sounds good.
Thanks everyone for joining me this week. Be sure to tune in again next week as we explore another account from a witness of the unknown.